Hello everyone, welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's final virtual pub session for the May festival season. I'm Richard Goslan, editor of the Society's members magazine Unfiltered. I'm your pub landlord for the night, and we've got a cracking pub session coming up for you. We have music from the Rhythm and Booze project, who should be with us on Islay at Islay House today. We'll be crossing over to Islay House to catch up with Steve Hagg. He's going to mix us up a Society-infused cocktail from the Peat Cutter Bar, the Society's partner bar there. We're going to meet Rachel McNeil from the Islay Whisky Academy to talk all things Islay, whisky education, and she's going to help us out with our pub quiz. We're delighted to have the one and only Jim McEwan, Islay whisky legend, joining us in the pub this evening to talk about his career in the world of whisky and how everything's changed in Islay over the years. And last but certainly not least, the Society's founder and member number one, Pip Hills, is in the pub tonight. So we'll be catching up with Pip a little bit later on to talk all things Society and whisky. For people watching on Islay, in Scotland and around the world, we'd be delighted to hear your comments. If you've got questions for any of our guests, then put them in the comments and we'll try and get to them and answer any questions as we go along. First of all, let me introduce my co-host for the evening, Dr Andy Forrester. He is the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's spirits educator, and he's co-piloting in the Islay virtual pub tonight. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm in good spirit, Richard. Thank you. How are you?
Yes, surviving. How's lockdown been treating you?
Yeah, well, it's been good. It was challenging at first, getting used to just being on your own, but got used to it. But I've been keeping pretty busy because, as you know, one of my main roles at the Society is to provide whisky education to our ambassadors and to our members. And so what I've been doing over the last 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it is now, is running online whisky science seminars where we've been exploring where flavour comes from in the whisky production process, so we can go and share all of that exciting knowledge with our members when we do tastings all over the world. And we've had folk in from Australia, North America, all over Europe, and here in the UK too.
Brilliant, good stuff. Well, I've been part of these webinars and they've been incredibly useful and some really good speakers and some great knowledge. So nice to be making the most of this time. Memories of Islay, we can't be there this year in person, but you've been there a few times, Andy?
I have, with various different hats on throughout my whisky career, whether it was my John Mark and Robbo days or my Bulveni days or my Scotch Whisky Research Institute days. And we spoke earlier, I think probably some of my best whisky memories are on Islay, whether it be pitching my tent at Mecca, or AKA Jim McEwan's front lawn, because I had nowhere else to pitch it. After a night sleeping in an old shipping container with some llamas. Wonderful experiences down at Lefroy, and a couple just canoeing up onto the shore there, chatting to them, and then finding out they'd named a mountain they'd explored in Greenland or something, Bulveni. It's just a mecca, a place for utter whiskey enthusiasts to go to. So yeah, just great memories down at Kildalton Cross, a place that just time forgot.
Yeah, well, we're all missing Islay in person this year. We should be at Islay House, and I was fortunate to be there last year, where we had a great music session from the guys behind the Rhythm and Booze project. So let's say hello to Felipe Schreberg and Paul Archibald. How are you doing, guys?
Gentlemen, we're doing very well. Thank you so much for having us over, even if it is virtually, and even if we can't be on Islay. At least the current situation can't keep us away from taking part in the fish. So
well, it's great that you could join us, at least virtually. Let's kick off with some tunes. So Felipe, we'll hand it over to you and take it away.
All right. Sláinte, everybody. We are landlord and I tumble and crack all alone. Oh, then I tumble and crack the whole night long. Oh, girl, this morning didn't know I'm from home. My baby before I left her down. Oh, my baby before I left her down. Don't you let nobody tear my little house down. If that river was whiskey and I was a diving duck. If that river was whiskey and I was a diving duck. Dive down right to the bottom, never would I come up. If I had a religion that had obedience there. And a religion is that obedience there. All the whiskey and women wouldn't let me pray. All the whiskey and women wouldn't let me pray. All the whiskey and women, they wouldn't let me pray. Hey, hey. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome. We're the Rhythm and Booze Project. It's good to be here. We're going to lay down some tunes for you before we have a whole bunch of drinking and a whole bunch of chatting going on. That was a tune called Rollin' Tumblin', bit of a traditional tune, a good tune to kick off with, especially as that was a song that was done by Robert Johnson, the great Delta blues artist. He covered that song, and there was a new photo of him that emerged recently. For those of you familiar with blues music, that's a big deal, a new photo of Robert Johnson. And also the song mentions whiskey, so entirely appropriate for the occasion. Let's keep on playing, shall we? We got people from everywhere checking in? Oh, that's good. That's good. Good. And they've come over all the way from Canada and Manchester, and we're going to drive them away with our music once they hear us actually play. But no. All right, we'll do a Halloween song next. Chicago tune called Spoonful. Spoonful of diamonds, could be a spoonful of gold. Just a little spoonful of your precious time will satisfy my soul. Some of them lies about a little, some of them cries about a little, some of them dies about a little. Everything is fine but a spoonful. That spoonful. Could be a spoonful of coffee, could be a spoonful of tea. Just a little spoonful of your precious love, good enough for me. Some of them lies about a little, some of them cries about a little, some of them dies about a little. Everything is fine about a spoonful of that spoonful. Could be a spoonful of water, save you from the desert sand. Just a little spoonful of a 45 will save you from another man. Some of them lies about a little, some of them cries about a little, some of them does about a little. Everything is fine about a spoonful, that spoonful of that spoonful of that spoonful of that spoonful. Fine about a spoonful now. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was a Howlin' Wolf classic written by the great Willie Dixon. For those of you just joining as we're playing, hello, we're the Rhythm and Booze Project, and this is the Islay Festival session of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society virtual pub session, something like that. In any case, we're going to do a couple more tunes for you before we kick it off to the rest of the gang to host you and keep you entertained throughout the next hour and a bit or so. And we're going to go with the fast one next. Slim Harpo tune. We are seeing lots of people checking in from all over. Paul is actually reading the screen now. It's a bit too far for us, too far for me to read. So yeah, this is Paul. I'm Felipe. We're going to lay some tunes down for you. It's a pleasure to welcome you. And for us, blues and whiskey is one of the greatest combinations. So it's a pleasure to be able to do that, given the current circumstances as well. All right, that's close enough. All right, here we go. Argentina. That's amazing. All right, here we go. I'm going to tell you about a dance that's going round. And everybody's doing it, from the grown folks down. Don't have to move your head, don't have to move your hands, don't have to move your lips, but you shake your hips. And do the hip shake, baby. And do the hip shake, baby. Do the hip shake, baby. Shake your hips, baby. Now if you don't know, don't be afraid. Just to listen to me and do what I say. Don't have to move your head. Don't have to move your hands. Don't have to move your lips. Just shake your hips. And do the hip shake, baby. Do the hip shake, baby. Do the hip shake, baby. Shake your hips, baby. Now ain't that easy? I met a little girl from a country town. She said, oh, what you know? Look at those boys go. I didn't move my head. I didn't move my hands. I didn't move my lips. Did you shake her hips? She did a hip shake, baby. Did a hip shake, baby. Did a hip shake, baby. Say, go ahead, baby. Now ain't that All right. Thank you very much. All right. We've been laying it down for a little bit. I think we're doing one more song. A big hello to everybody joining in. We're the Rhythm and Blues Project, kicking off the virtual pub sessions of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. We will be playing at the end of the night as well, I believe. So maybe stick around until the end. In any case, let's keep it going. We're going to do one more song. Then we're going to hand it off back to the boys who will see you through and host you for the rest of the night. Let's end things with we'll do a bit of a slow one. We'll do another Howlin' Wolf tune. We've been going pretty fast this entire time, so we'll do a song called Red Rooster next. And by the way, I should mention we're based in London today. So all the way live from London, Jim McEwan on harmonica. Jim McEwan, you are always invited to play harmonica with us. I'm going to throw that out there, and I hope he's listening. We've had, for those of you who are familiar with him, we've collaborated with Colin Dunn before, and if Colin Dunn can do it, so can Jim McEwan, I would say. For those of you who are familiar with Colin and his wild ways. All right, one more tune, and then we'll get started with the actual programming of the evening. This is Red Rooster. Got a little red rooster, too lazy to crow all the day. Got a little red rooster now, too lazy to crow all the day. Here's all the animals in the barnyard, upsetting every way. Hounds begin to howl, the dogs begin to bark. Hounds begin to howl now, and the dogs begin to bark. Look out, strange cow people, little red roosters on the prowl. I lie now. See my little red rooster, won't you please drag him on home? See my little red rooster now, Won't you please take my home? Ain't no peace in the barnyard. The little red rooster gone. Thank you very much. We're the Rhythm and Blues Project. We'll be back later. And now, Richard, back to you.
Brilliant set, guys. You've lit it up right from the outset. So absolutely tremendous. Thank you so much, Felipe and Paul from the Rhythm and Blues Project. So let's crack on, but we'll come back to you later on in the evening. Not a bad way to start, Andy, right?
Yeah, super. That was great. That reminds me of my days drinking whiskey with Eddie Ludlow of the Whisky Lounge, who loves his blues, and we would while many an evening away with some fine whiskies and fine music. Thank you, guys. And Colin's a legend.
Right, let's go to Islay House. So we should all be there this year as usual. Steve, this is Steve Hagg, owner at Islay House. He's in the Peat Cutter Bar, which is the society partner bar over there, and he's going to mix us up a cocktail. Steve, how are you coping over in Islay at the moment?
Well, it's blowing a hoolie out there at the moment. It's about 50-mile-per-hour gusts. The rain's coming in, so I think in some ways probably best that everybody hasn't made the journey over this year. We've had good weather in the past, but this it would have been a tricky one today.
So what you got for us at the bar?
So, we've got our usual collection of all kinds of great SMWS bottles. And we picked one kind of in line with some of the rest of the theme, a relatively young Bunnahabhain 10-year-old. And we're going to use this as the base for a new drink that we've just concocted called the Smoky Rose. And this is based on this 10-year-old Bunna, 10.127. It's a strong one at 62%. Really kind of has those classic burnt notes, and hence the name Burning Scarecrows by the Sea. But it also has good citrus flavors as well. So you get quite a lot of pineapple and other things. So this really gives us the backbone for this drink. With the ABV in there, it makes it a bit punchy as well. The other thing is, as we get used to this new coronavirus lifestyle, we've taken on, this as an opportunity to really do a few other projects around the house. And one of them's getting into the garden and doing a bit of work. So, and hi Donna, how are you doing? Good to see you. She's a regular, has been with us, I think, pretty much every year. So, sorry we couldn't have you here this year out in California. But we ended up getting the rosemary straight from the garden. Beautiful. A lot of people don't realize the rosemary will actually flower and has this beautiful purple flower to it. So we're using that rosemary to really get into this drink. And it's relatively simple. Everybody can make it at home. In addition to the Bunnahabhain, we just concoct a simple syrup, 1 part water, 1 part sugar, and toss in a couple sprigs of rosemary, and you're good to go. And 1 lemon and the sprig of rosemary, and you're good. So just in your shaker, bit of ice. You're gonna put kind of 2 drams or so, a large dram, depending on where you're at, of your whiskey. Wee dram of your simple syrup. And then squeeze more or less a whole lemon. Close your shaker up. Give it a good shake. Might be a wee dram, but at 62%, it'll still deliver a punch. And as you're shaking, you'll get the ice breaking up, the ABV coming down a little bit, but still considering it a pretty intense drink. A lot of people ask how long to shake. About 15 to 20 seconds is usually, I was reading actually a paper on this that somebody actually for their academic research did this, and they were saying about 15 to 20 seconds until the ice starts to break down. Then strain. And of course, garnish with your beautiful sprig of rosemary. And you have a lovely Bunnahabhain-based cocktail.
Looks fantastic, Steve. Got a question in there. Are you releasing a phage bottling this year from Islay House?
We were planning on it, and we're going to go with another single cask from down the road. Unfortunately, given the situation that we're facing, we've delayed it. We hope to bring it out as soon as everything gets back to normal and we start to have people coming. As you can imagine, the hotel is closed for visitors right now. So as soon as we look to reopen, we hope to have our delayed phage bottling later in 2020. Good
stuff. Okay. Well, we should be there in person today, having our open day and a good session. But unfortunately, we can't be there in person. But great to see you behind the bar at the Peak Cutter, and we'll see you next year.
We look forward to having everybody back as soon as things start moving again. And of course, welcome everybody back next year too.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Thanks, Richard.
Steve. In good spirit.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Okay. Moving on with our cocktail. Maybe get to that one later. Shall we just have a wee reminder of how to make that cocktail? Let's see.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, let's do that. So it's Islay House Smoky Rose. For anyone who's taken notes, Steve was using 50 mils from a specific society cask, 10.127, Burning Scarecrows by the Sea. But if you don't have that, a peated flavor profile is what he was going for. 50 mils of lemon juice, 25 mils of rosemary simple syrup, and a sprig of fresh rosemary. Sounds like that would hit the spot. With a little bit of sun would be nice as well. Okay, let's.
Well, on that note, Richard, if you having heard the weather report there from Steve, I'm kind of in a bittersweet way glad we're not there, because I have an unbroken record for being on Islay in the most glorious, wonderful sunshine every single visit. So I don't know how I've been so lucky, but there you go.
Well, I don't know how you've been so lucky, because last year I was there and the Friday was pretty good, but the Saturday, myself and some fellow society members did a cycle trip around all 9 distilleries on the island, and it was a pretty awful day in terms of the weather. We braved it out. We got a good soaking. We dripped all over the floor of the nice new cafe at Ardnahoe, but we got around. But it was quite a tough day, I've got to be honest. But you've got to get out there.
Unlucky. Well, by contrast, I swam in the sea at Port Ellen. I swam in the sea along those famous white walls of Bowmore Distillery.
Brave man. Okay, let's bring in Rachel McNeil from the Islay Whisky Academy, a well-known face to many society members. Rachel, lovely to see you.
You too, Richard and Andy.
How are you doing over there?
Well, it is blowing a hoolie, but I've noticed out the window, because you can see across the loch to Brichladi, that the sun's shining on the righteous. So that'll be Mr. McEwan's house. For everybody else, but not over in Brichladi.
So what's keeping you busy just now, Rachel? You've got the Islay Whisky Academy, but obviously, no one's able to visit the island just now. But you've got other plans in the pipeline?
Yes, Richard, we've just launched a very exciting thing. So next year we're going to have it's called the Independence Academy. So we're having the normal academy where people will come to Islay for our 5 days residential on Islay. That's in March and in October next year. But in May, from the 3rd of May, from the 3rd of May to the 7th of May, what we're going to have is something totally different. Islay Whisky Academy is going to the mainland, and we are going to work with independent distilleries on the mainland to bring you an Independence Academy. Hello, Dan, how are you doing? So I'm very excited about that. So this is craft distillers, all independent distillers. It'll be the same premise as the academy. It's 5 days residential. We'll move around the distilleries. there's people got back to me already, and I only thought of the idea 2 days ago, and they want to be, hi Chris, and they want to be involved in it. So one of the main ones is Daft Mill Distillery, because it's, you know, he's a living distillery of what distilling used to be, used to be like in the past, because they only distill according to the agricultural year. So that's very important to this kind of ethic that we're going to have. Where else? Well, I can't say where else we're going because I don't want to be too presumptuous. I'm sure the other distilleries will say yes, but I don't want to name them just yet until they do. You know, it's a bit...
So, no, it sounds like a lot of plans. It must be kind of strange on the island at this time of year when obviously the population kind of trebles or even quadruples. I'm not sure how many, but, you know, the place goes crazy at this time of year, doesn't it?
Well, it goes up maybe to about 10,000 people sometimes could be here, you know, for the feast, Richard. And just now it's only us, like 3,228 or whatever it is. So it's very strange. The roads are quiet. My Jeep for the academy's not, you know, it's not been a run properly. So the battery actually went flat, and I had to go run around the island to like recharge it, and it was really quite. It was not spooky, but it was kind of like that because I was like, oh my God, I'm the only person on the island. Where is everybody? It was so bizarre driving around, you know, and not passing any cars. And yeah, it's strange, you know. I mean, it's nice. It's nice in a way, Richard, because we hear, you know, the bird song. There's no planes going over. It's, you know, there's a lot more engagement with nature, but we miss the people.
Yeah,
all of
right.
us missing the people.
Well, we miss it as well. Rachel, sorry, Andy, on you go.
Just to Rachel's mention about people there, for me, that's just what Islay is all about. And just the most wonderful people, many of them, of course, in this industry. And I've just met everybody I've ever met is just so wonderful, wonderfully welcoming and lovely. And like I say, let you sleep in a shipping container with their pet llamas or camp on their front lawn. Yeah.
A wonderful community. Alpacas. There's a story about that.
Mary, this is Mary's beasts, yeah? They're alpacas. My mistake. Shouldn't get a plant biologist on when you need a zoologist.
Right here.
You're drama, so you've got it in your hand. Okay, yep. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Rachel, will you do us a favour and help us out with the quiz tonight?
Oh my God. Yes, I'll do my best.
Right. Let's see. Let's pull this up. I'll let you and Dr. Andy take care of the quiz. So I'm going to bring it up just now. Now, for everyone else that's listening in, it's a multiple choice quiz. We're going to go through the options and then reveal the answer as we go through the quiz, so you can participate in the comments. I'll try and keep an eye on how you're doing. It's a bit of a mix of questions, but this is approved by Dr. Andy Forrester, Spirits Educator at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So it better be correct and in order. So without any further ado, let's pull up the Islay Festival quiz and over to you.
So Rachel, should we take turns? And then what I thought might be a bit of fun is I'm sure between us we can add a little bit of a geek fact on the back of each answer and share with people a little bit more information just to tell them a bit more about things. How about that?
That's fine, Andy. That sounds good to me.
I'm relying on you.
I'm relying on you.
Number one. Do you want to go for this one then?
Yes. Okay. So, what do you want me to read it out, or what?
Yeah, if you read it out, and then Richard will put up the multiple guess answers, and then people can have a stab at the answer, and then Richard will reveal. So go ahead. Okay.
So parts per million, ppm, is used to measure the amount of phenolic or smoky compounds at which part of the production process? A, fermentation. B, maturation. C, malting stroke kilning.
So there's just 3 guesses on this one, Rachel. So the answer is...
do you want me to say the answer or straight away, or do we want to wait till people... Because I can't see.
Richard's going to chip in here.
I was just going to see what the answers were. I think most people are bang on with this one. Well, there's an A coming in, but most people are going for C. And I think that's an easy one, eh?
Yeah.
That's like the music quiz on Radio 2. They all start with an easy one.
Well, let's see if they get any
to con people.
So, Rachel, is there anything you'd add to the answer to that?
I would say that there's people. There's a difference between smoky and peaty, and there's a thing called cold smoke and hot smoke. So for instance, Lagavulin is more ashy and smoky, whereas Laphroaig is more juicy and peaty because they're malting. The kilning processes will be slightly different.
Yeah, no, interesting. And I mean, this is why I think actually there's so much more to talk about than absolute levels PPP. And I know from research that was done at the Scotch Whisky Research Institute, where the peat was cut, the origin of the peat can have a major impact on flavour, which leads nicely to question 2. So question 2, I'll take this one. Which of these sites of peat extraction, and they are all sites of peat extraction, which of these is not a site of peat extraction on Islay? Too much.
Come on, all you need to do is read the question.
I know. I should have kept. Which of these?
He said too many drams.
I know. So is it A, Castle Hill, B, St Fergus, C, Gott Breck, and D, Glen Macri? So we'll pause for a moment.
Maybe a wee bit trickier, that one.
Okay. So
Easy
which of these is not?
Easy enough for Rachel, I think.
What's the answers coming up?
Well, we've got B's coming in. We've got C coming in. We've got no idea coming in.
That's the answer.
Yeah. We've got a D. No, it's a kind of mixed bag. Most people are going for B. So the big reveal.
Yeah, St Fergus. So they are all sites of peat extraction, but St Fergus is on the mainland in the northeast of Scotland, and it's where more of the Speyside distilleries would take their peat from, as opposed to the Islay distilleries. And I bet Rachel could tell you which of each of the distilleries cut where on the island.
Well, yes. So you have, let me think.
Sorry,
Laphroaig is at the airport. But the sad thing about Laphroaig at the moment is that it's not getting cut by hand anymore, because the guy that used to, the kind of traditional guy that did that is not able to do it. And it's very hard to find someone to cut peat now. Like, seriously, it's hard to find someone that wants to do it as a job, because it's not. It looks romantic and glamorous, but it's actually very hard work, and the midges are hell.
Can only imagine.
It's hard work. Talking of Islay stories, and I have a great memory of being taken up the hill by Percy McPherson, who used to be at Bowmore, you'll remember, many years ago, 20 years ago, and cutting peat up there with him. That was magical. So we'll move on. Question 3. Do you want to read this one out then, Rachel?
Yep. So where on Islay would you find the Society's partner bar, Islay House, that we've just seen with Steve Hagg making the cocktail? Where is that house on the island? Is it A, Port Charlotte, excuse me, B, Bridgend, C, Conisbee, or D, Cruach?
I'm glad you did that one, Rachel, for the pronunciation.
That's what I was thinking myself.
Well, it looks like everyone knows where Islay House is. Certainly, anyone that's been to Islay and been to the open day, they know their way around. So
otherwise, we'd have to put them out the virtual bar, Richard.
Exactly. Chuck them out. So that's an easy one. B for Bridgend. So
here's my geek fact. Bridgend is where the infamous, legendary Shorty the Jack Russell of Ardbeg fame saw out his days, I believe.
You've lost me now, Andy.
He's havering now.
He's havering.
Okay, is it me? Which of these distilleries is working with the Highland and Islands Agronomy Institute on Orkney to grow bare barley? Is it Beaumont, Kalila, Bruichladdich, or Kilcoman? So which of these distilleries is working with the Highlands and Islands Agronomy Institute on Orkney to grow bare barley?
Right. Immediately, we've got Peter Moser on St. Laddie. We've got Barbara Muller, Bruichladdich. Oh, yeah. Everyone's going Bruichladdich.
Yeah.
Any others? Yeah. Oh, someone went for Kilcoman, but the answer is
Bruichladdich.
Yeah. No, correct. And well, fair guess with Kilcoman. They do their own malting, so it might make sense. But yeah, this seems absolutely Bruichladdich territory, and I'm looking forward to speaking to Jim later about all these ideas of terroir and where the barley's grown and the species of barley that's used.
Okay. Question 5. Over to you.
Name the ferry port on Islay where the boat leaves for Jura. Is it A, Port Charlotte, B, Port of Kennecraig, C, Port Ellen, or D, Port Askig?
Now, again, I'd say that's quite an easy one. That's a giveaway, isn't it?
Hope so.
Yeah. I don't see any.
100% there, have there?
Yeah, I don't see any wrong answers coming in. Everyone's going
good
for D.
And it's like a wee story about Port Askig is that American tourists were peering over to Fuelin where the ferry was coming back to Port Askig, and the husband turned to his wife and he said, "What's that? The name of the port in Jura? Is it Port Acabin? Portakabin."
Oh dear.
They were looking at a Portakabin that was on the side of the pier that was going to come back.
We should include that one as an option. Not
Poland, Portakabin.
No.
This is better than your Craigellachs and your Laguvulins. You know, after we move on, we have our friends from across the Atlantic with us. Which distillery is found on Rockside Farm? Is it A, Bruichladdich, B, Kilcoman, C, Ardbeg, and D, Lefroy? Okay, so which distillery is found on Rockside Farm?
Let's see. Yeah. We got some pipes coming in.
That's my phone. I'll just try.
Did the producer not tell you to turn it off, Rachel? What's going on?
Okay, Rachel. Should we do the answer, Richard?
Yeah, I think most people are getting this one right. Let's see. If you went for B, Kilcoman.
Kilcoman, home of Anthony Wills and his son's wonderful project.
Yeah.
One of the first new distilleries, I guess.
You had me worried there, Rachel. I thought the pipers were interrupting the pub session.
The pipers had come into my house.
Yeah, they weren't invited. Okay, whose turn is it?
It's Rachel's go.
So
right,
the question now is, how many working distilleries would you find on Islay? Number A is 9. B is 7. C is 11, and D is 13.
I think most people didn't even need the multiple choice here. It's overwhelming in terms of everyone going for A, 9, obviously with the introduction of Ardna Ho. But how long will there just be 9? Any idea, Rachel?
Well, I think Protelling's 2023 is maybe the date for the opening. So that'll be, I don't know what we call it, because we used to call them the Great 8 and then the Fine 9. What are we going to call the 10? Answers on a postcard.
Yeah. Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I like this one. What type of maltings would you find at Port Ellen maltings? So which type? Is it a drum maltings? Is it a floor maltings? Traditional floor maltings? Is it a Saladin box maltings? Or do they have modern super whizzy SGK vessels, that's steeping, germination, kilning vessels? So which of these type of maltings is in operation at Port Ellen?
So again, we've got a few quick comments for A.
Okay.
The favoured one. Yeah, everyone's going for drum.
Yeah, they're all right then. So that's correct. Awesome place. Wonderful place to go to. Filthy, dirty.
Not open to visitors, is it? Or maybe
no, but I'm sure.
Usually Richard, yeah.
I think they've done open days during the festival, haven't they?
Yeah, that's just what I said.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, okay.
Okay, Rachel, over to you.
Which legendary distillery was housed within the Lagavulin distillery complex? Was it A, Islay, B, Malt Mill, C, Ballygrant, or D, Freeport? This is a very tricky question, Richard.
Is it?
Ooh.
Yeah. As Mr. McEwan will tell you later.
Oh, dear.
There's a story behind this one then. Okay, everyone's going for B. Everyone's going for Malt Mill, but maybe there's more to be said about this.
Yeah, okay. But I'll not say it. Mr.
Okay.
McEwan's more up to date. Mr. McEwan's got all that info.
We'll save it for
you tease.
So the answer is Malt Mill. Okay. Always makes me think of the movie Angel.
Yeah.
With Charles McLean, no?
Charlie, yeah.
Right, last question. This one for you, Andy.
Is this me? Okay. Which of these is not a flavour compound associated with peat smoke? Is it A, phenol? Is it B, guaiacol? C, eugenol? And D, isoamyl acetate? So which of these is not a flavour compound associated with peat smoke?
We've been told we need to raise the level of the questions.
I see that. Well, bring it on. bring it on. What?
This one's a wee bit more mixed. We've got some B's, some C's, a D. So not as clear cut as some of the earlier questions. So
there we go, then.
Okay.
We'll throw the chemistry at them then. So do you want me to reveal the answer? It's isoamyl acetate, which would associate more with flavours produced during fermentation by the yeast. This is the compound we usually is responsible for the sort of really fruity pear drops like aroma we see in New Spirit. Okay.
He just loves to talk chemistry, Rachel. I can't stop him.
I think a lot of the Islay geeks and the SMWS geeks really know a lot of facts and stuff. They're not just frivolous, you know.
No,
we're very serious about it.
Right, Rachel, we've got someone you know well coming into the pub just now. and it's a great pleasure to introduce the one and only Jim McEwan. Jim, I was just looking at your resume a little bit earlier. Was it 1963 that you started at Moore as an apprentice cooper?
Yeah, it was the first day of August 1963. I remember it well. Yeah.
So that's gone back a wee while.
A skinny wee guy from Main Street, Bowmore. Started working in Bowmore Distillery, which was every boy's ambition, leaving school at 15. I remember that day well. I was desperate to work in the distillery. As kids in Bowmore, I'm thinking of some of the great managers like Eddie McCaff and other guys who worked at Bowmore. Bowmore Distillery was our playground. That's where we played, and we helped out the malt bands. But generally a bit of a nuisance, a pain in the arse, you know. But anyway, that's where we hung out. So, and even as we got older, and we started going to dances in the village hall in Bowmore, a Saturday night dance. That was like the epitome of pure pleasure, you know. But unfortunately, the dances stopped at 11:30. But that was quite good, because we all used to go down to the distillery at 11:30 in the evening. And there was always a peach fire burning in the kilns, obviously, because the peach fires were on. And there was always a couple of bottles hidden in the peat stack. And what the guys used to do is, they used to hide that they would break a peat in half, take it from a peat stack. You understand? It's like bricks. So you take a brick out of a wall, and you break it in half, and then you put your bottle behind it, and put the peat in front of it so you can't see it. You got the picture?
Yes.
You
Got the
it?
picture.
Yeah.
If you've never seen a peat stack, you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so and there was always a bottle hidden behind the half peat. Comprende?
Yeah.
So, and it was quite funny. Sometimes the man in duty, the kiln man, he'd be pretty drunk, and it became a bit like a crossword puzzle. And he was saying in Gaelic, was it 7 up and 4 across, or was it 4 across and 7 up? And then he would go looking for this half bottle hidden behind a half peat in the peat stack. And after about half an hour, the peat stack was totally demolished, but he did find the half bottle. So that's what was my childhood, just going into the kiln like the rest of the boys. After the dance, first place you went to was a Bowmore nightclub called Morrison's Bowmore Distillery. By that time it was Sheriff's, and we passed the nights away. We would be gambling and talking about football, and I didn't drink in these days. I was too young, but it was a great atmosphere.
Rachel, anything you want to say to Jim before we move on?
Yes, well, that's funny that you should say that, Jim, because one time, like when I got my first real interest in production was when we used to go to the distillery after dances too, myself and Biddy, and we used to go and they would be blethering, but I would get pulled, Eddie McCafford to take me round, or Angus Starrick to take me round, and then I'd be like that. Now, what was that about? Take me round again. One night, someone took me round 3 times round the distillery. They were sick of me.
Yeah, so that was the start at 15 years of age. Every Islay schoolboy's dream was to get a job in a distillery, and there wasn't that many vacancies coming up at the time. So I was very, very fortunate to get an opportunity at Bowmore. And that, of course, was the days of the puffers. It was really, really hard work. There was no Ford trucks. These puffers are coming in, bringing in empty bars or bringing in barley, and then they would take away whiskey, so it was hard graft. I remember, we would take these big butts of whiskey, weighing over half a ton, and there's no fork truck. How do you get it onto the back of the lorry? Well, you got to push it. You had 2 runners going up onto the back of the lorry, which we called skids, and 4 or 5 men would take a run at this and push this half-ton up the skids onto the back of the lorry. I mean, health and safety was really, it was non-existent, It was something terrible. But what a place for kids to start. My God, this was like mother care times 10. It was fantastic.
But that's the thing, Jim. You've been in the industry so long, and you must have seen so many changes over the years, from the early 60s till the present day, and your involvement at Bowmore, obviously at Bruichladdich, and most recently at Ardnahoe, and then seeing how the whole culture of whisky has changed. Now, a visitor centre is almost compulsory for any distillery, whereas, that just wasn't part of the picture at all back in the day, was it?
No, in fact, there's notices outside each distillery dissuading people to coming in. This is private, you know what I mean? And I think when we opened up the doors to visitors, it was the best thing that happened. And I believe Bowmore was at the very forefront of that. I remember the first reception centre we built there. And as far as I can remember, Bowmore was one of the distilleries at the forefront. And that was fantastic, because I regard everybody who came to a distillery that I worked in, whether it was any of the three mentioned, I regarded each visitor, regardless of where they came from or how much they spent, they became unpaid ambassadors. If they had a good experience, they would talk to their friends about you. So they were working for you when they went back home to Detroit or went back to Sweden or whatever. So everybody got treated with respect, because we do respect them. We're a small island, and the most important person in our life is the customer. Without customers, you're dead, So it was always our ethos at Bowmore, to be really, really respectful and helpful. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There's only a stupid answer. So we were really into that sort of stuff, and it paid dividends, and we won so many friends. I mean, I've been around the world more times than a satellite, and everywhere I go, we get, as soon as you mention the word Islay, a smile comes to the face and a light comes to the eyes, because they've had a good experience in Islay. So the one thing we are good at on this tiny island is making people welcome, whether it be Bowmore or Floygerbeck or whatever one we have thing, because we really do welcome them, because it's a long winter here. And that, because of these stories, there is no unemployment in the island. Everybody works that wants to work. Everybody works on the island. I can remember days when the distilleries were closed, the bad days, and all the distilleries were shut, there was no future for Scotch whisky, but it's never been better. And it took a lot, I can tell you this, guy, it took a long time for people to get Islay and the smoky flavour. I remember going on the road around the world more times than a satellite and presenting more, and people would never tasted Islay. You could just see them grimacing with pain. What is this? You know what I mean? They weren't used to it, the smoky flavour. But slowly but surely, we won them over. And then drinking Islay became a kind of rite of passage. I drink Islay. I've got hairs in my chest, man. You know what I'm saying? Whiskey's for real whiskey drinkers. And it was really fantastic. And I must say that throughout my time in this whiskey industry, it's 57 years I've been in this game. And I've been to more shows than I can talk about. One of my things I've noticed most, and the unwritten rule for guys on the circuit going around the world talking about their distillery, you never speak ill of another distillery. Never. You must never do that. There's nothing worse than hearing somebody say, oh, such and such is much better than your whiskey, or such and such. If you don't like it, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with whiskey. It means there's something wrong with your palate. That's one of the great rules of them. Never speak ill of another distiller. And that same rule of thumb applies today. It's easy to be negative. But
Jim, I've got to jump in because we're getting several requests to tell the dog and his tail story. So do you want to just...
Jim, do you mind if I just say a few words before we go on to the dog, because it's sort of relevant? And Jim, you talk about the visitor centres creating unofficial ambassadors and advocates, and we know it does that well. But you, I think, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I think you've been an absolute inspiration for many of us official ambassadors that went out to talk about Scotch whisky to the masses. And we all learned something from you, whether it's the way you talk about whisky, the way you express that passion. And you reminded me there about, never badmouth another distillery's whisky. And I remember you sitting me down in your office and telling me that, you're very welcoming. I said you let me camp on your front lawn. But you sent me away with lots of important things that stood me in good stead for my career as an ambassador. And I also remember, and I've still got it, you sent me away with 500 mils of spirit caramel to tell the world about what an evil thing it was. So, I just wanted to build on this idea, because Jim, you were unquestionably one of the first true ambassadors going out there in this modern era, talking about whiskey and exciting people about it. And that's, 20 plus years ago. And we followed in your footsteps, and you and Richard Patterson, and, we look to you for our inspiration. So, and I remember you sending me this. These are tasting notes, handwritten tasting notes for all of your whiskies at Bruichladdich in those early Helston days.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and I know you're absolutely sincere, and I know that. And you also have done a great job for promoting whiskey per se, but in particular, I know you love Islay. It's in your heart and in your soul. But also, there's, I was a blender for many years, so I got to appreciate all the whiskies of Scotland. And it's amazing. There's some amazing whiskies up the Speyside and the Highlands and that people don't really know about because they're not big names. But as blenders, we used to judge them. We would judge them first class, second class, or third class. And there's still some undiscovered diamonds out there. People drink the same Big Ten. But I mean, we've got almost 100 distilleries, and it's different vintages and all that. So the journey goes on. The great thing about single malt whiskey, you will never, ever get bored because there's always something new coming forward. There's always something else to learn. And it depends on your mood. What mood do I need a Lafroig? Or what mood do I need an Octomore 6.5? And when do I need an Auchentoshan? There's a whiskey for every mood and every situation. So it's endless. It's like a rainbow. It's going to go on forever, which is good. Anyway, on to the story of the piper at the top. This is like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. You think it was in an asylum, you know what I'm talking about? But more distillery. And I'm going to have to change the names a bit because I've got to live here. And some of the man's family are still alive, so they might attack me. So anyway, it was after a Saturday night dance in the Moor, and myself and my good friend Eddie McCaffrey, who became the board manager, and a good friend Innes McKechnie, who's now in Australia. These are my bosom buddies. And we were the ugly guys. We never got a girlfriend after the dance, so we were the three ugly guys. So we would always end up down in the distillery. The dance stopped at 11:30 because we couldn't dance on the Sabbath. Most of the people couldn't walk, far less dance, you know. That's all right. That's another story. Anyway, we would go down to the distillery and we'd go to malt bands and we'd help whatever particular malt man was on that night. We'd help him to grub the floor or turn the floor. But Jimmy was grubbing, then to walk around and see the stirman and get the crack, because we all knew them. We lived next door to them. And there's no nightclubs, there's no discos, so there were more distillery, or like most distilleries, that was the place you went to. And this particular night, we were down in the kiln, we had rubbed the floors. It's about 1:30 in the morning. And we're playing cards, a game called Pontoon. And there's a lot of money on the table. I think it was about 3 shillings. It was serious stuff, you know. It might have been 2 sticks, so it doesn't matter. It was big stuff. And we're playing a game called Pontoon. And the man on duty that night in the kiln, I would love to say his name because the whole island knows who he is. But let's just call him, for the sake of this, let's call him Wooly. Okay? So Wooly was on duty that night and he was absolutely to the nose. He was really drunk, you know. And he had a dog called Spot. Kills me. Anyway, we've opened the kiln fire door and we're sitting there with playing Pontoon 21. Myself and Eddie and Innes McKechnie and Jackie and somebody else. And we've all got drams and we're drumming away. And obviously we stole it. We're drumming away. Well, I didn't steal it. It was these other guys stole it. Sorry. And there's a lot of money on the table. There's about 3 shillings. And the kit, this is the big deal, you know. And the man who was on that night, let's call him Willie. He couldn't count. For some reason, he couldn't count. Which that's fine, because every time you got 21, we say, no, sorry, you're not 27. And he couldn't argue. Anyway, the door opened, and in came this piper with his bagpipes. He had been at the Territorial Army piping class, and he was absolutely brutal. He was very drunk, and he had the pipes. And so we're sitting there playing cards, and the pet comes in, and we give him a dram from behind the peat stack, and suddenly the pipes come out, and he starts playing the pipes, and it sounded dreadful. Oh, Jesus, it was horrible. And he was heeing and hawing and hawing and heeing, and we're trying to play cards because there's 2 and 6 in the kitty. And the tillman that was on that night, John, he played a good drink. He suddenly cracked up, right? And as the piper passed him by, squawking this pipe, John picked up his dog. He stuck the dog's tail in his mouth and started to bite it, and he walked behind the piper. So you got the drunken piper, coming behind him is John, biting his dog's tail, and I have to tell you, the dog sounded better than the piper. That's what happened in World War Distillery in 1963. And the best bit was the piper never even noticed the bloody difference. Oh man, talk about alcohol. So that was the story of the piper, yeah. The dog's name was Spot, by the way. Yeah? And I have to say, after a few drams, it sounded quite good, you know. That was the question.
Mm.
Did that answer the question?
I think so. Can I ask you something else, Jim? Do you mind? Because you talk about whiskey being this never-ending journey of discovery and new flavors, which it is. And I think you at Bruichladdich back in those days, more than any, gave us that opportunity with all these wonderful different cask finishes that we saw. And you probably experimented with almost every single cask you can imagine. And I just wondered where you think the innovation is for the future in terms of flavor. Is there casks we can still to discover to use, or is it somewhere else? I know you've always had a deep interest in the idea of terroir, for example. So where do you think, where do we think we're going to discover new flavors in the future?
I think Bruichladdich, I must say, my knowledge of wine is very, very limited, but my knowledge of cask is good. When Simon and Mark, who came from the wine business, as you well know, had all these fantastic winemakers who had grown friendly with over the years because they were importing quite a lot of wine into London. And particularly Mark, Simon was great as well. They're both great wine connoisseurs, you know, aficionados. And when they approached me with the idea, I wasn't really too excited by it because I don't know anything about wine at all. It comes in a box and that's it. So anyway, they brought the cask in. And very quickly, I realised I was doing some finishing. Taking it from the bourbon cask and put it to a Chateau Yquem or a Merlot or a Tudor or Feet or Barolo or Baresco. These guys are bringing in all these amazing wine casks, and it was absolutely mind-blowingly good. Sensational. The flavours, the fruit flavours that were coming through was so. I mean, I was the guy who was taking them out, saying that's enough. There comes a point where you must never allow the wine influence to dominate the natural flavour of the single malt. That would be just unforgivable, that's just not going to happen. So it's a constant battle, getting to know how long to leave them. And that meant a lot of examination, go back and forward, and getting the strike point just where the bourbon cask is talking. The bourbon cask has been our backbone since time immemorial. But God, it was exciting. It was all these flavours we'd never tried before. And all credit to Simon and Mark, because these are the guys that brought them in. And I was a kid at the playground. But you had to watch them. If you let it go too far, very, very quickly, like a thief in the night, the wine would come in and dominate the natural flavour of the spirit. And that's the last thing you wanted. And I'll tell you something else. I would say probably the best whiskey I've tasted, one of the best whiskeys I've ever tasted in my life, was a product called Black Art. Maybe some of you heard of it, Black Art. It was absolutely sensational. I did a lot of strange things with that one, but that's why I call it Black Art, the work of the devil. And so I hope that answers your question. And wine casks will continue to be used because they're readily available, because more people are drinking wine. They are inexpensive to ship. You're not shipping from Kentucky all the way into Glasgow, and then from Glasgow to Ireland. So the cost is very, very good. You don't get the same lifespan out of it as you do from Americans. They're much harder to rope. But yeah, I love wine finishes.
And it's good to just hear you talk about the importance of still recognising the DNA of the distillery, though. Whatever you do with these casks, it still needs to be recognisably Bruichladdich or Bunnahabhain or Lagavulin or Laphroaig.
Yeah, most people, once we latch onto a single malt, we fall in love with it. I mean, I'm crazy about Bunnahabhain. I think Bunnahabhain, my cask. I tasted a 28-year-old last year at Ardnahoe. Bunnahabhain in a sherry cask for 28 years. You think, well, Bunnahabhain is a gentle spirit. And you'd have thought that the sherry would have dominated. There was an Oloroso sherry. It was just beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. But we've been around sherry cask for a long, long time. And my preference, I love sherry casks. Sherry finishes, I don't like necessarily. But, it just depends on the distillery and the quality of the cask. As I said to you at the start of this, the spirit is the child and the cask is the mother. If the mother has no milk, it dies. There's nothing worse than going into a warehouse and seeing third-filled cask. The cask has got nothing to give you. You're wasting bloody time. Spend a few more bucks and buy a decent cask. But you can only do that if you use an E150 in your product. And that's the thing.
Jim, I remember you picking layers of paint off the end of one of the casks that you'd inherited and swearing profusely about the situation.
Very seldom I swear. It's very seldom I swear. You dump a cask in a hogshead and you scrape the paint off, and there's 3 coats of paint.
Exactly.
That's the DNA. It's been filled 3 times, so there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Jim, if we're talking about Islay memories, can I just? I'm going to pour myself a wee dram of this one. This is from the Islay Festival 2015, which I think for anyone that was there will live very, very long in the memory. I remember the tasting that you held up in the warehouse at Bruichladdich, and that was the year you retired from Bruichladdich, wasn't it? I've got my bottle signed, and I've been kind of nurturing, holding on to this bottle since 2015. But there is at least a wee dram left in it, so I'm going to pour that and think of just brilliant times in Islay in years gone by, but especially that 2015 was just sensational. And I saved the bottle for a while, but whiskey's for drinking. I cracked it open, and I have to say, it is an absolute belter.
Yeah.
Cheers.
As I said earlier, the cask is total more, but so is distilling. I mean, most distilleries are really quite automated now, and that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. It's not good for the workforce, but because one man can run a distillery now, but that's just life, and that's the way it goes on. But just now in Islay, I mean, over the last maybe 15 years, the Islay category that was once sort of shied away from because people didn't understand it. Thanks to the hard work of the ambassadors of each of these distilleries, the Laphroaig, the Lagavulin, suddenly people realised that the Islay whiskies are really quite complicated. You're getting the peat flavours there, you're getting the different peating levels. If it's matured on Islay, you're getting the salt influence, which is really, really important. People just don't know it. I can remember as a cooper at Bowmore in #1 vaults, which is right beside the sea. And the sea was battering off the wall of this warehouse all the time. And it was a constant battle, keeping your eye on the hoops on the barrel, because there was so much salt atmosphere in that particular 1x1 bolt. The hoops burst. And when one hoop bursts because of rust, the next hoop goes. It's a chain reaction. And it was nothing worse. I mean, we lost quite a few casks in that way. It's just because of the amount of salt in the air. It's really, really amazing. And you've got to live in Islay to understand it. I mean, in the old days, when there was a car going about, the cars fell apart because of rust. It wasn't the metal was rubbish, it was just rust, you know. Living on an island.
Well, it's good to see you going strong, Jim. It's been fantastic to catch up with you. We could talk for a lot longer in the pub, but I'm conscious that time is ticking on. We've got someone else waiting patiently in the wings who I'm very keen to get into the pub. So we can just have a quick crossover, because I think you know this gentleman, Mr. Pip Hills, who, of course,
quite a bit of money as well.
Pip, I'm sure most people who have tuning in know all about Pip. He is the founder of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. He's member number 1. He was the figure who came up with the crazy idea of bottling whiskey taken from a single cask, which started off in the late 70s until the society became an official thing in 1983. So way ahead of his time, and I'm absolutely delighted that Pip can join us tonight. Pip, thanks for coming in. You know this chap, Mr. McEwan?
Yes, I know him of old. And I'm sorry I haven't seen him for a long time, but do say to him that the sooner I see him again, the happier I'll be. Did that get on?
Right, gents. Jim, thank you very much for joining us. And Rachel, great to see you.
You too.
Just before you, hi Pep, good to see you, my friend. I haven't seen you for a long time, and it's just a joy to see you. And you're looking well. And do you remember that £20 you borrowed off me 20 years ago? Is there any chance of getting the money back?
I dare say. Do you want interest? And if so, at what rate?
Anyway, good to see you, mate.
Right, Jim and Rachel, all the best.
Jim.
We'll see you next year.
Slanship.
Right, Pip, sorry to keep you waiting in the wings there. But thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing under lockdown conditions?
Well, I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm kept busy. We have a big house, and Maggie presented me with a list of jobs that needed done on a sheet of A4. I suggested that she do it single spacing. She did it single spacing. She has still difficulty in getting them all on. So I've been working my way through that. At the moment, I'm turning banister spindles. We have a house with a 4-story staircase, all of which are pitch pine banisters. And present count, we've got 94 spindles, and we need a dozen more. So I've been turning them out of wood. That's what I've been doing of late. Nothing very exciting, nothing exactly whiskey related, but hugely interesting for me.
What about Islay? You know, if you get any specific memories of trips to Islay, maybe
I've got any number of memories of Islay. I made a lot of trips over the years. To tell the truth, the thing that sticks probably better in my mind than any is scones. I went to visit Ardbeg, and it was still working at the time, but only just. I think it was in Allied Distillers' hands, and I went to Ardbeg, and they made me very welcome, and they drew a couple of drams from casks, which were wonderful, and then they said, "Would I like some coffee?" And the distillery manager said, "Would I by any chance like a scone?" So I had coffee and scones, and she made the most wonderful scones. So my principal gastronomic memory of Islay is of scones rather than of whiskey, although the whiskey was very good.
You've written about how the whiskey scene was so different when the society started. You know, well, there was a lot of distillery closures at that time, and it was just a lot easier to go out there and purchase single casks of whiskey. Is that right?
Oh, it wasn't. The main impediment was that they weren't used to selling whiskey to anyone except people in the whiskey industry. So distillers sold to brokers and brokers to blenders, and they swapped them around. But when we came in from the outside, they were deeply suspicious of us. But they had so much whiskey lying about that they eventually, when they realized that we weren't doing them any harm, and possibly, just possibly, might be doing them some good, they were more than delighted to get the stuff off their hands. And I was buying fabulous whiskey for which you pay absurd prices nowadays. And I'd say to the guy, "And what do you want for this 25-year-old Dallas Stew?" And he said, "Oh, just pay me for the alcohol." You paid so much per litre of pure alcohol per year, irrespective of the quality of the cask. Very different change, very different times.
Absolutely.
And there was any amount of it lying about. And the place was awash. The whiskey industry was doing what it typically does, and what I fear it may be again doing. That's to say, it was going from boom to bust. And I mean, it has been cyclical for a very long time, and I'll be very surprised if the present cycle doesn't end in tears again. But that's not our business. But it's there at the time. It was in one of its depressions, and there were large numbers of people holding large stocks, which they couldn't think of anything to do with. None of the blenders wanted them, and nobody was selling malts.
But then the industry, when you suggested this whole idea of a society which bottled whiskey from a single cask, the industry turned around and thought, well, this is crazy. There's no demand for it, and it couldn't possibly work.
That's right. Both the two replies in one. They would say, "No, you can't do that," and they say, "Besides, if you did it, there would be no demand for it." I mean, and I would say, "Well, why not? Because it's brilliant stuff." And they would say, "Oh, if there'd been a demand for it, we'd have done it years ago." And I pointed out that there's a certain lack of logic in this response, but then the industry was never particularly renowned for logic. I suspect it isn't either nowadays. I'm seeing a lot of things happening that would not be dictated either by logic or by enlightened self-interest.
Pip, you may have read this, and if you haven't, I'll lend you the book. But there's a wonderful introduction to a book that William Grant's put together for its ambassador team many years ago, and I dug one out of an old cupboard one day in my Bulveni days. And there's a foreword by the late great Michael Jackson, and it talks about the absurdity and the illogical setup of the Scotch whisky industry, whereby all of these different factories, basically, to make different flavors, are spread out all over Scotland in inaccessible places and need to be brought together by the most convoluted routes of transport possible to put together in blended whiskies as the industry was then. And I think it's a lovely example of your illogical description of the industry. So I'll share it with you one day.
Fine. I'd be happy to see it. But there are other forms of illogic. I frankly have my doubts about this perpetual pursuit of novelty of flavour. I'm not sure that's what whiskey's about. I know it's the present fashion. It has been the fashion since we drew attention to the fact that whiskey had flavour and that it was possible to analyse the flavours. But I think the constant pursuit of novel flavours I have my doubts as to how long it will be possible to sustain that without damaging the whole notion of whiskey itself. However, there you go.
And
a question, just if I can address this, what about the initial situation that made you willing to create the Scotch Malt Whisky Society in '83? Was there something specific where you thought there's an opportunity here?
Oh, well, it was very simple. I mean, I've told the story often enough. I discovered by accident Glenfarclas from a 10-year-old quarter cask, and it was just amazing. And I tried it on my friends, and they all said, this is fantastic stuff. This is infinitely better than the whiskey we can get in bottle. Nobody's seen whiskey as good as this. And sorry, I tried one or two others, and it became apparent that if you could procure good malt matured in a first-class cask, you were getting a product which was better than the run-of-the-mill malt and infinitely better than the rubbish blends. And make no doubt, in 1983, there were a lot of real rubbish blends. But, so, you know, it seemed obvious. This was probably the best distilled liquor on the planet, bar none. And nobody was trying to sell it. So, I mean, what? It was a no-brainer, really. Does that answer any questions?
I think it does. And we should point out that you have been busy. You've written a book fairly recently called The Founder's Tale, which I think is it's like a ripping yarn of a read about the foundation. Dr. Andy's got his copy. It's about obviously the foundation of the society first and foremost, but about whiskey adventures in general. So it must have been quite an experience to kind of sit down and, you know, relive all that experience.
Well, in fact, it came about more or less by accident, because I had gone. It was not long after you guys approached me and said, would I be interested in being associated with the society again? And I thought you seemed perfectly decent sort of blokes, and why not? And I had gone to see Hugh Andrews, the managing director of Berlin Publishing, about another book altogether, which I finished writing earlier this year, but alas, it's not going to be published till next. But after I'd spoken to Hugh about it, and he had said he was guardedly in favor of this book, I said, I have had knocking around in my head for a long time a whole lot of stories. They're mostly stories about me and my friends, but they almost all involve whiskey. And I described him a book which would be roughly structured around starting the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and indeed my time at the Whisky Society. And I said, would you be interested? Because I think just possibly the society might be interested. And he jumped at it. He said, like a shot, no question. I'd be, you write it, I'll publish it. And this was in October. He said, when can you have it ready? And I said, end of January. So I had a busy 3 months, but I delivered him the text at the end of January. And yes, it's not intended to be a definitive history of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. And I say this right at the beginning. It's the Whisky Society as I conceived it and as I saw it, and as I saw it develop. And one of the characteristics of it was everybody had their own take on things. A lot of people thought I was, shall we say, less than sensible in some respects, but it seemed to turn out all right, and the folk that have read it seemed to like it, not bad. And the best thing for me was that I got it off my chest.
I know you're not a man to sit still and be idle, Pip. So you're working on something else just now, some other book?
Oh well, I've been working on. I've finished my Stirling engine book, which there was supposed to be a launch at the Edinburgh Book Festival this summer, but of course that's been abandoned. And I've been doing odd jobs. As I say, turning banister spindles, doing the hoovering every Friday, doing the ironing. These things, you may laugh at this. I couldn't say there's a great deal of skill in hoovering, but ironing is a very skilled thing indeed. And
does it help?
I'm pretty good at it. But what I have been doing is I've had in mind for years a scary novel. And I won't divulge. It's basically a modern take on the Dracula myth, which is something I've been very interested in for a long time. I mean, the whole idea of vampires and rebirth, and of course sex, because it's all terribly sexy. Anyway, I've been working on this, and I've been doing a lot of reading of late, mostly St. Augustine, who's a very strange guy, one of the founders of Christianity. And some of the novel is set in the early Christian period, which is terribly interesting. That kind of strays kind of far from whiskey, but there you go. I don't know if it'll ever get finished, because I did say I wouldn't accept a deadline, so I can please myself.
Am I allowed to bring Pip back to whiskey, but staying with the theme of books, and rather than looking forward, which I know is challenging at the moment, but looking back, and it's kind of, I think what's been nice tonight is having Jim McEwan with us, and actually for our Highland pub night out, we had Richard Patterson join us, and both of those legends of the whiskey industry were involved with you when you did the Scotch Whisky Directory, where you did perhaps the first real flavour profiling of Scotch whisky. You mentioned earlier how, we started the idea that there might be flavour in whisky, which very definitely you did. And I just wondered if you'd got a few comments about that, sort of looking back to working with Jim and Richard and David Robertson and Francis Jack at the Scotch Whisky Research Institute, all people that have, still in the industry today, friends with us, but set this quest for talking about flavour off.
Well, the Whisky Directory I did after I'd got the heave from the Whisky Society, and I had been thinking for some time that there is an awful lot of self-delusion where whisky is concerned. There's lots of self-delusion where any sort of good liquor is concerned. It's partly to do with the neural connections that make you tend to like things. But I've been thinking for a long time that it was time that there was an objective assessment of the flavour of whisky, because people were passing off real crap. And nobody was coming out and saying, look, this is not good. There was an interesting conversation earlier in which you guys were all saying, yes, they're all wonderful whiskies. And I can appreciate why you say this. It's very desirable. There are a lot of very nice people who are making them, and everybody wants to be supportive of everyone else. And this is highly desirable. But unfortunately, if that sort of thing is carried too far, and it had been carried too far by 1983, when I started the society, it produces a kind of cozy club of people who never say anything amiss about anybody else's product. And the consequence of that is that people get away with selling all sorts of rubbish, stuff that really isn't good. And because nobody is prepared to get up and say, look, this is rubbish, there is a kind of mediocrity which drags the whole thing down. And that's something, I mean, I'm an old man, it's not my concern, but this should be a concern of yours. You have to have some critical acumen. And that, I think, is what the Whisky Society brought for the first time to Scotch whisky. It brought the idea of analytic tasting, actually describing what the stuff is like and saying whether it's good or not. We were lucky that almost all the stuff we were getting was really good. But if everybody says everything's good, then there is no way of telling what's good from what's bad. And that's a very serious matter. Does that help?
Yeah, great. I think that's a fantastic insight for us all, Pip. So thank you ever so much. And yeah, thank you.
I can give you a very good example from the directory. When I went to Ardbeg, I tasted 2 or 3 casks, and it was absolutely wonderful. Allied wanted to offload Ardbeg because they didn't have a use for it, and Glenmorangie bought it. And I suspect they didn't do their diligence quite as duly as they should have done, because you need only look at the profiles of Ardbeg single malts in the Whisky Director, and that was not terribly long after they had bought the distillery, and they are very poor. And certainly I would never have bought whisky with flavour profiles like that. There are lots of middle-of-the-range blends which have flavour profiles that are a lot better than the profiles that Ardbeg was showing at that time. Now, that was a very long time ago. This was in the early 90s, so I'm sure it's all a lot better now, because the people who are running the show know what they're doing, but it was not good at the time.
Yeah, I guess flavour profiling leaves you, strips it all back and reveals everything about you, without the brand and the packaging and all of that. Flavour profiling is very revealing. That's really interesting insight, Pip. Thank you.
Pip,
yeah, well, I did. Sorry.
Yeah. No, on you go.
No, I did. I was going to say to Andy, I did have hopes of persuading Richard that he might think about running flavour profiles alongside tasting notes. That would be very interesting.
In what way? The sort of spider diagram idea?
Rubbish.
Right.
It's one of the worst ideas I ever saw. And this was the be-all and end-all of whisky analysis for the Pentland Research Institute and later on for the Scotch Whisky Research Institute. And they were saddled with a really bad concept. And they weren't inventive enough to see that it was bad. And it's almost incomprehensible. You need a PhD in flavour profiling just to read the thing.
That's where Andy comes in. He's the only one that's qualified.
I'm sorry. In fact, Maggie's nudging me and saying I should tone it down. But
no, it's all no.
If the cap fits, wear it. If this was what you made your career out of, Andy, I'm terribly sorry, but that is my opinion. Just
I'm not
somebody who doesn't already know what it's about to look at the thing, and it's incomprehensible.
Well, I'm going to chip in, actually. You're right, Pip. And firstly, I'm not responsible for the Scotch Whisky Flavour Wheel, so I'll let Jim Swan and Sheila Birtles bear that cross. But I think you're right. In its early days, it was riddled. It was a production tool. It was designed to help distillers control process and blenders to put whiskies together. And it was riddled with chemical terms that meant nothing to anybody. Fainty, for example, estery. What does that mean? Well, it means fainty means kind of fishy and unpleasant. Estery means fruity. But you're right. It was incomprehensible. You needed a PhD in chemistry to understand it. So I think I take that point. I think the positive is, though, that concept, the fundamental idea, has been taken on by different brands, have used it as a really clever tool to communicate about flavour. And some of the boring statistical methods we use to look at whiskey flavour, companies like Diageo put their flavour map together, and we sort of used that concept in my John Mark and Robbo days to explain the differences between the flavours of different whiskies. So turned into something that communicates a little bit better, I think there's value. But I take your point. Yes, you need a chemistry PhD. I'll say no more.
Yeah, but if you look at the flavor profiles in the directory, they are simple, they are comprehensible. Anyone who's not a complete idiot can understand what they're about. Now, what more do you want?
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it works.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, the fundamental idea is the same. The language that you used was more accessible, and of course, most people don't speak chemistry. So, you know, they want to hear fruity and sweet and peaty, not the chemical terms. So, yeah, we could be here all night.
And the Research Institute, Francis Jack was terribly helpful and provided me with a lot of the information and translated the principal chemical flavor categories into organoleptic categories, which were things like floral, fruity, vanilla, and so on. And it seems to me that it works.
Yeah.
The only problem was that nobody in the industry wanted it. Because if you are trying to sell a brand, you publicize your brand on the basis, by and large, of irrelevant criteria. And the last thing you want is an objective assessment of the flavor of it. So,
Okay. But I think we're going to have to leave it there. We've got
we could be here all night, and hopefully we wouldn't end up in fisticuffs.
We've got our musicians standing by, ready to play us out. Pip, thank you so much.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
Virtual pub tonight.
It's always brilliant. Thank you, sir.
From everyone at the Society, we thank you for setting it up in the first place and for continuing to be a great supporter and friend to the Society. So cheers, good health, and look forward
very much.
In good spirit, my friend. Good night.
Good night, Pip.
Thanks.
Right, on that note, Andy, maybe time for some mellow music.
Ooh.
What do you think?
Yes, please. Some more of that blues would be a great way to see the evening out.
Okay, we're going to wrap things up. We've got another set from Felipe and Paul at the Rhythm and Booze Project. Something to chill out. So everyone, charge your glasses, get a dram in hand, and get ready to relax to some nice rhythm and booze. All right, boys, take it away.
All right, we'll do it, though. We're not sure how to follow up that firecracker of a discussion, but we'll do our best with the Bo Diddley tune. Let's do it. You can't judge an apple by looking at the tree. You can't judge honey by looking at the bee. You can't judge a daughter by looking at the mother. You can't judge a book by looking at the cover. Can't you see? Well, you misjudge me. In a final, baby, I'm loving now. You can't judge a book by looking at the whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't judge sugar by looking at the king. Can't judge open by looking at a man. Can't judge a crystal by looking at the book. You can't judge a book by looking at the cover. Can't you see how you misjudge me? In a Bible, baby, I'm loving now. You can't judge a book by looking at the whoa, whoa, whoa. by looking at the palm. Can't judge a right by looking at the wrong. Can't judge a one by looking at the other. Can't judge a book by looking at the cover. Can't you see? Well, you misjudge me. If I'm a baby, I'm loving now. Can't judge a book by looking at the cover. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let Paul take a drum solo. Go ahead, Paul. Can't judge an apple by looking at the tree. Can't judge honey by looking at the bee. Can't judge a dollar by looking at the mother. Can't judge a book by looking at the cover wall. Can't you see? Well, you misjudge me. If I'm a baby, I'm loving now. Can't judge a book by looking at Thank you very much. All right, we're going to do this, go to something a little bit more unusual. A love song that I do with just the drums, actually. A tune called My Love Is, I believe originally sung by the great Little Willie John. Give it a shot and see how it goes. In the meantime, Slanchava, everybody. It's been such a pleasure. Yeah, so in any case, this is Paul. I'm Felipe. We're going to close out the session tonight. My love is on a mountainside. So far I can calm down the tide. My love for you is a mountainside. You stand so firm I can calm down the tide. That's why my love is a mountainside. My love is the ocean's roar. So strong that I can't let you go. My love for you is the ocean's roar. It goes so strong that I can't let you go. That's why my love is the ocean's roar. My love lasts longer than forever, as endless as the march of time. 99 years until forever. In my heart, you'll always be mine. That's how my love is the deep blue sea. So deep that I'll never be free. My love for you is a deep blue sea. It goes so deep that I'll never be free. That's why my love is the deep blue sea. And that's why my love is the deep blue sea. All right, that was originally sung by Little Willie John. My love is. So Paul's going to mute his snare again because we have to watch out for the volume. The way we play with the recording setup we got, but we're going to go a little bit more chaotic next. We're going to do a tune called "I Put a Spell on You," our version of it. Many people have done an amazing version of this song. Nina Simone does a great version. Joss Stone and Jeff Beck did a version. Annie Lennox did a version of it, which is not that good. The original version of the song is done by Screamin' Jay Hawkins. And it's got the best story. Screamin' Jay Hawkins wrote I Put a Spell on You as a love ballad in 1955. Goes in to record it. Never gets released because the song's just too crap. And he goes in to record it again in 1957. And they're spending the day in the studio. It's not sounding very good. And they're getting really frustrated. So the day the producer recording them gets them drunk on whiskey and then records them. Screamin' Jay Hawkins was so drunk on whiskey when he recorded I Put a Spell on You, he didn't remember recording it and had to relearn his drunken version of the tapes taken from the studio session. So we'll do, in the spirit, pun very much intended, of that session, we'll do our take on it now. This is me getting into character. Slanjava, everybody. All right. That was I Put a Spell on You, originally done by Screamin' Jay Hawkins. That's our little take on it. Ladies and gentlemen, SMWS members, thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for making us a part of the FAISH. I'm glad that even some damn pandemic can't keep us away. So we're going to do one more song for you, and then that'll be us signing off. We're going to end with a John Lee Hooker song called Boom Boom. If we're allowed to plug ourselves, if you look us up online, you'll see us doing a version of this song in the Lagavulin distillery using what we believe is the first ever bass drum made out of entire Scotch whiskey cask. And so this is the song that we played on it and put on a video online, and we hope you enjoy. All right. I'm gonna shoot you right down, right off of your feet. I'll take you home with me. I'll put you in my house. Boom, 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 boom. How, 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 how. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, boom, boom. I love that wow. When you walking like that, it knocks me out. Boom, 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 boom. How, 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 how. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, boom, boom, boom. Talk, the way you whisper in my ear, the way you tell me that you love me. I love that talk. When you're talking like that, it knocks me out. Boom, 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 boom. How, 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 how. Boom, 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 boom. How, 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 how. Well, yeah. Hey, yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Paul Archibald on the drums. I'm Felipe Sharper. We're the Rhythm and Blues Project. Thanks so much to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society for having us. Have an excellent evening. Have an excellent virtual face. Stay safe and take care. Thank you and good night.
In good spirit.
Felipe and Paul, absolutely sensational. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you in real life next year or sooner, I hope. So cheers, guys. Absolutely brilliant set. Lovely way to end the evening. So all the best.
And get Jim on that harmonica.
Next time, right?
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Oh. You all right, Andy?
I'm good. What a fantastic evening. I'm just looking at the comments.
Did you get a chance to chill out there?
Yeah, that was nice. That was lower the blood pressure. That was fabulous. A glass of Fino and some Delta Blues, and yeah, I'm good. Thank you. It's been a lovely evening.
Nice way to wrap things up. So that's it. I mean, we're almost at 10 o'clock now. It's been quite a pub session, our last of the festival pub sessions, but you know, we've got a lot more ahead of us with the society. Next week, Friday the 29th, is our festival bottlings virtual tasting with our one and only global brand ambassador, master brand ambassador, John McShane. And most of you will know John, and be ready for a really good session with John. He's going to have Mads Schmall in his co-pilot seat next week. So that's next Friday evening. It's going to be all whiskey next week, you know. So those of you who got your tasting packs ready, it's going to be a great night. But thanks to everyone who's joined us tonight. With Steve Hagg in the house, with Rachel McNeil, with the one and only Jim McEwan with his legendary stories, and the guy who started it all for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, the one and only Pip Hills, and then of course our music from Felipe and Paul from the Rhythm and Blues Project. Absolutely brilliant. Andy, thank you so much for joining us, bringing your whisky knowledge and your chat. Great to see you.
Thank you.
We'll see you very soon. So that's it. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. It's great to see you. We've had people from all over the world tonight, you know, people coming in from across the US, from Asia, from Europe, South America. Big shout out to Chile, even Argentina out there. So brilliant to see you all. Stay safe. It's been brilliant to have you in the virtual pub, and all the best to everyone, and a big slange from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society.
In good spirit all.
Cheers.
See you soon.